Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
There will be blood. I've been on a Paul Thomas Anderson binge the past week, and I reviewed Boogie Nights last week, and I figured I'd do another one from the great another one of my favorites from Paul Thomas Anderson. This one starring Daniel Day-Lewis, Paul Dano, both of which give amazing performances. I felt this one also. Paul Thomas Anderson brought a lot of the score, the kind of the emotions and chaotic feeling and nature of the score from Punch Drunk Love. I felt that he brought that in a lot of ways over. There are very tense moments in this movie, just like chaotic percussion on strings, which is very similar to the chaotic moments in Punch Drunk Love, but done in a different way. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson's really good at changing the look and feel and sound of his films to go with the story, whether it's the fast cuts, ever-moving camera that you see in Boogie Nights, or it's something more elegant and minimal like there is in Phantom Thread. This one, I feel, has that gritty Western feel to it. Just an amazing story about Daniel Plainview, who is a self-made oil man. The movie starts off with there's a lot of just long scenes where nobody says anything. Most of the movie is Daniel Plainview. I mean, it starts with him deep down inside the well, digging it on his own. Nobody's there helping him. Risking his life to try and make money in, I guess that would have been the late 1800s when this movie first starts. And I think he finds some gold, and then from that he uses that money to invest in finding oil. But all of these scenes are like, I mean, it starts with him, looking for something, and then brings up a rock to after he broke his leg in like this thing, and it shows. It's almost like a montage, but stretched out over what seems to be a half hour of then him starting to kind of get a crew, and tragedy happens there where one of his people working with him dies and he has a kid. They don't really specify if this kid belonged to this guy, or if it's what the story that Daniel Plainview says towards the end of the movie, but it really had a feeling like this guy had a kid with him, and that guy died, so Daniel Plainview took on this kid as his own, and then they became like a two-man crew of him just kind of slowly becoming this oil man and going to places, buying new land. He meets Paul, who is a brother of Eli and a son of the Sunday family. I believe it's the Sunday family. And Paul hears of Daniel Plainview's drilling, and that, there's oil companies buying up land around the, let me just double check and make sure I believe it's the Sunday family. And of course, it's the way they categorize, Sunday family. Sunday Ranch. So Paul goes to give Daniel the information on this land. It's like, so we got oil just leaking out of the ground. So he kind of sells the idea. Gets a finder's fee from Daniel Plainview, goes to the area with his son under the guise of quail hunting. And, while they're checking out the land and seeing if it's worth it, and then, obviously finding out that, it's a good spot. And you could tell, like, Daniel Plainview talking to his son, that he's teaching him. He's grooming him to, be a partner in the business, and, like, understanding why he makes the decisions he's making, and just really teaching him to follow in his footsteps. really taking him as a son. And so they go, and it's a lot of this movie is about how Daniel Plainview's like this, actually a self-made man, and really good at negotiating and really good at understanding what he wants from a situation and what he's willing to do to get what he wants from a situation. And then you see this scene where he's like, talking to his son about purchasing the land. And it's like, we're going to give him quail hunting money, not oil money, for the price of the land. But Eli, being a shrewd person, also a man of the cloth, a preacher, a local preacher in town, he has his own predetermined things that he wants to take advantage of with this situation. He wants to grow his congregation. I mean, churches are a business. The more people that go to your church, the more money you're able to swindle from them and spend on building a bigger church and giving yourself money and just doing, it's a business. You're selling a product and an idea as a product, and I guess it's a product it's not much different than like Star Wars, being a Disney Plus subscriber to watch all the Star Wars movies because Disney owns Star Wars. Like if Disney bought up Christianity, then you could just subscribe to God for $15 a month ad free. But yeah, so Eli, who is a twin, which I guess I read that Paul Dano went in to just play Paul, which has a very small part when he's giving Daniel Plainview the information on the land. But I guess he was so good, or he persisted, that he ended up getting the Eli role. And I think Paul Dano and Daniel Paul Dano and Daniel Day-Lewis are amazing. I mean, just because this movie, in a lot of ways, I mean, it's a big Western. A lot of the performance is done in the face, like the facial features and things of Daniel Day-Lewis. It's amazing. I'm so glad that he got best actor, because it's amazing. Obviously, director is, Paul Thomas Anderson's amazing. Paul Dano, amazing performance by him as well, playing this preacher, and just their scenes together are amazing, because there's a constant power struggle between Daniel Plainview and Eli Sunday. As this town is growing, because not only is Daniel Plainview going to get rich off of this oil that's in this land, but he's making jobs. He's everybody's going to move. Everybody that's going to be working on these oil drilling and pumping and all of the things, they are all going to be living there now with their families. They're going to be part of this congregation that's going to grow, and Eli Sunday is going to get all this money for the Lord, and build that up. So there's a constant power struggle, because Eli wants to be the leader of the town, but Daniel Plainview is the one he's building the town. He's literally creating this town out of nothing. It used to be a farm that grew nothing, and he's turning it into a big oil town. And so there's a constant power struggle, which that power struggle is amazing throughout this film, because there's a moment where Eli finally finds a way. A situation arises where Eli's finally able to be the dominant one in the relationship between him and Daniel Plainview. When Plainview needs a plot of land to build a pipeline, this plot of land that he could have purchased early on, but didn't really think about it. It was a holdout that he didn't really consider, because the pipeline thing wasn't a thing yet. So now it comes to bite him in the ass, and the owner of the land is a big supporter of the church. So the only way for Daniel Plainview to get access to this land is to go to the church and say he's a sinner, because at this time, Daniel Plainview's son, there's a tragic accident that happens, leaving his son deaf. And because of that, his son starts to rebel and be literally dangerous to the well-being of people, starting fires, doing these things. So it's tragic what happens, because he loves this kid. He loves this kid as his own. It's not even his son, but he's brought him up, and he's been his companion, for not in any like creepy way, just as a father to this kid. And this is a scene where it's like, well, he's like Daniel only cares about succeeding and growing his that's like he's myopically focused on that. And when his son's when his son becomes an obstacle, he gets rid of the obstacle. And it's tragic. When he ditches his son in the train. It's tragic. But because of that, these Christians know that. They know that he got rid of his son. So they want to take advantage of him, and it's an amazing scene. It's an amazing scene where Daniel Plainview is at the front of the church apologizing for his sins. And it kind of, in some ways, does humble Daniel Plainview in a way, because, the character's emotion, not only having to lower yourself to, entertain these people and pretend to go along with their traditions and craziness, that it still was cathartic in a way in him really facing the fact that he did get rid of his son, and maybe not a good move, but yeah, the son eventually comes back, but this movie isn't much about. I mean, part of it is the son. I mean, you see that Daniel Plainview's trying. He's like trying to do the right things, and he's like a honest man to a point. He's a shrewd businessman. But in this time, it's like, how much can you really trust anybody? Everybody's trying to take advantage of everybody. Businesses have the money to do more, take more advantage of it. But yeah, it's also crazy just, watching a film like where you see how effortless crime was, right? There's part of this movie, somebody shows up and it's like there's identity theft. Like, another reason it's hard to trust people is that just people can show up and say that they're somebody, and there's no really way to verify it. Like, as far as like you have to take people at their word. And eventually the truth comes out. And because of the truth coming out, another crime, a more heinous crime, is committed. Something that police officers do far more than they should. And it's just crazy to see how effortless you can like get away with things like identity theft and murder in that time, It's also similar to the scene in Inside Llewyn Davis, where the cop shows up, they're asleep on the side of the road, getting a nap on a long road trip, and cop pulls up and just arrests the driver, wakes him up, arrests him, and everybody else wakes up just on the side of the road, and the driver's missing. Like, it's just a crazy time that not that long ago, where like things, like illegal things, whether they're done by police officers or just done by other people, you could just easily get away with it. It's insane. It's insane. But this is an amazing movie, a classic. It's so good. I hadn't watched it in forever because it is kind of a long movie, but it's just so good to see, like, just amazing performances. You're seeing a director that understands every bit of this movie and how he wants to tell this story, and just how to, like, the crazy play of power that shifts when Eli gets that power. It's like insanely disgusting. I mean, nobody's really an honorable person. Daniel Plainview cares only about one thing, despite the person that he raised as a son. Like, he has zero care for anybody. other than success and growth. And he's like a guy that really wants to just prove all of the other wealthy people wrong, right? Like there's people that come from money that he just doesn't give a fuck about, and he wants to be better than. Because even when at the end of this movie, when he has everything, right? He has everything, although he's lost. He has nothing. You know, he has all the money, but he's alone in this mansion. He has a servant, but his son is like estranged and has moved on and gotten married and wants to start his own oil business. So Daniel Plainview takes that as a personal, a personal beef. Like now you're no longer family. Now you're my competition. And it's like, that's all that Daniel cares about. He needs that competition. So even though he would have been against his son, it's like, but you could tell he's bored because he's got like a shooting range set up in the hallway. He's like, the goal wasn't to get the mansion. The goal was to win at all costs for him. But there was still that one last thing that he hadn't won. Because of that, the last time, as far as the power struggle went, because after, Daniel was the whole dog and pony show on the church, him, confessing his sins, and Paul Dano doing his whole thing. Eli's character goes off on a mission, and that's kind of, Daniel never really gets the power back until the very end, where it's Depression times, and Eli is trying to sell that land that, because he went to the church and got permission to lease the land for the oil pipe. Now, at this point, Daniel Plainview's an old man. Like, that land means nothing to him. The oil underneath the properties that were around there were all sucked up from the oil rigs on the land that he purchased. So there was no oil left. And and Eli didn't know that. That's the whole milkshake. I have a straw, and I just put that straw all the way over there, and I drink it up. Because that was the pipeline is the straw. And all the oil is the milkshake. And Eli is trying to sell an empty glass because he thinks that somehow pieces of the glass are, not connected. Like the oil underneath that plot of land just stayed there because it behaved well and didn't float to the other places that were being sucked out. And it's an amazing scene where you see Daniel Plainview get basically his last victory, and maybe, hopefully, his last murder as well. But it's kind of a great ending for the Daniel Plainview story in a lot of ways, because he finally gets that power back. He gets Eli to confess his how that he knows he's taking advantage of people and that it's all made up. But yeah, it's a masterpiece. It's a great film. I really enjoyed revisiting it. It's on Netflix right now, but it's a movie that everybody should own. It's definitely one of my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson films, which I'll be doing a top 5 of those pretty soon, tomorrow actually. Top 5 Paul Thomas Anderson films. So we'll see where this one stacks up with the other ones, because he's got some great films. But this one, probably my favorite, definitely my favorite Western. It's just such a great movie. I loved it. So check it out. There Will Be Blood. Get yourself some amazing coffee over at stationhousecoffee.com and follow Station House Coffee on Instagram. Order yourself some small batch, single origin, premium coffee brewed in Thetford Center, Vermont, and shipped directly to you. So head on over to stationhousecoffee.com and order your coffee today, and follow Station House Coffee on Instagram. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com, and follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!